Today we are joined by Jurius Doctor, who has his own YouTube channel on guides and updates and that sort of thing, which there will be a link for that in the description below. And what we are going to be discussing today is the industry changes, the major update, which is possibly one of the biggest updates that's been implemented in EVE Online for at least 10 years. So first of all, we've got Jurius here. So Jurius, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I am Drew's Doctor, and I am a YouTuber who makes instructional content about YouTube
Perfect.
and also EVE Online.
Nice, nice. Well, it's good to actually get someone like yourself on that's done a lot of insights into this, that's looked into a lot of the numbers. I mean, there's been a few people in the INN Discord which have all been going over the numbers, and there's a website which we're going to bring up in a minute and discuss, where you can look at the new changes on the new components and how much things are going to cost and what you're going to need to actually make battleships and above. So first of all, what we're going to look at is the industry changes. So I will leave a description, a link to this in the description. But basically, it's all tied into with the lore of the Triglavians. It was their information warfare that crippled a lot of ships through capitals and battleships. I don't think it actually made a difference in the game, but they're tying it in with the lore, so it sort of follows the game's lore and justifies the change, such a heavy change to industry. So they're making them a bit more complex. Now, the reason for these changes is to create more robust and interesting manufacturing progression, which it most certainly will. It will directly affect faction ships, capital ships, sub-capitals, and super capital ships. So all the way from your battleships to your titans and your faction ships, all the way down to the faction frigates as well. It's going to change the entire economy because you need planetary interaction materials. You need gas, which was usually the low sec and null sec gas, which was mainly used for drug production or booster production. And also it's tying in wormhole gas and reactions. So you need an entire and the moon mining in high sec. So it's tying everything available in the game into producing this, which I think is a good move. Some people are not happy. What are your thoughts, Joyce?
I honestly feel that there's some positives here and some, definite opportunities for people. Although I must confess some concern about sort of the negative impacts we're already starting to feel, but we can talk about that a little bit more into the show here.
Yeah. Yeah, there is so there are negatives and positives to this, as with every patch that comes with the game. I mean, a lot of the veterans like myself and yourself, Jurius, and say like 2014 players are set up. They've already got their huge sprawling manufacturing lines set up, and they're the ones that are going to be hit hardest for this. But the new guys coming in, it's just going to be the new normal for them. So there are new pluses and minuses of this. We'll be going into a bit more of those later on. But as it says here, the update is split into two different phases. So first phase has already gone live. That was seeding the reaction schematics and the blueprints to make these, so there isn't a sudden shortage of the materials. And as it says, the transitional period, the second will go live a few weeks later. So that's looking at in the next week or two from the time of recording. There are some other things coming in April, but we're going to pretty much focus on this industry update. So we're going to go to my camera in Jita, which I've got my trade alt sat in Jita, and we're going to look at some of these blueprints. So what you're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, is the new blueprints and reactions for the battleship components, capital ship components, and even faction components, which you can all find in the manufacturing research components. There's protective components, there's advanced capital ship components, there's programmable purification thing here, that's new. Neuralink enhancer, that's new. Life support, that. So if you want, you can have a look through all those yourself, and the reactions, it's under molecular forged reactions there. So there's a hell of a lot going on here. Now, firstly, for battleships, you're going to need the auto integrity preservation seal unit. You're going to need a core temperature regulator, and you're also going to need the life support backup unit. So these ones are going to be consumed. I'd arguably say the highest amounts, because the battleships in EVE Online are used for incursions. They are used for PvP. They are used for missions. And so, what can you? What do you think? What would you expect from these? The material requirements for these, and with regards to battleship production, Joyous.
Well, we've already seen core temperature regulator blueprints dropping in sites. Several members of my own corporation have found them. And, the first question was, hey, these aren't worth very much. Should I hold on to them? And I was like, yes, because they just dropped, so they don't have an established price, but the price on those is about to climb exponentially. And sure enough, here we are 4 or 5 days later, and the prices are considerably higher. So it's one of those things where, to give you an example, I'm currently in the process of fitting up a standard Orca fit that I use in Python. And what used to be an 850 mil build with all the modules and all the drones is now almost 2 billion ISK. So we're already seeing pretty heavy price impacts.
That's over double.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
exactly what I said it would be, about 116% increase.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. So when you said these blueprints were dropping, were they copies or originals?
Copies.
Copies, right? I was gonna say that would be a bit broken, because the originals, like for the core temperature thing, is 750 mil. But these are seeded by. So as we said at the start, these are seeded now, so you can get them in Jita for an unlimited amount there, and you can get them all in Jita from these.
And I think you can actually find components in data sites and relic sites, although the number in which they're appearing seems to be kind of erratic. I don't know if they've finished tuning the numbers, as it were, but yeah, some of these components are actually available as salvage from data sites.
Yeah, they did say that some as along with the whole production and the combination of God knows how many materials, there are going to be some that will be restricted to either NPC drops or site drops. So I think those ones will have the risk of being overpriced, because someone might want to control the bottleneck of them, or make it into a bottleneck by constantly buying them all up. Or some people might want to do that. So these are sort of things we're going to have to look out for. But since this went live, I believe people have already started producing them. I myself, on my alts, have already started producing the life support backup units and a core temperature regulators. And as obviously Battleship production is going to need them, so I've started producing those. But what's interesting is there's a lot of PI that's going into these. A hell of a lot of PI. So I think there's going to probably be a lean towards. I don't want to start stepping on the into the territory of a completely different video, but I'm going to go into a lot of things in more detail in a separate video, because there's so much to cover. I don't think you can do it all in one video. But I think PI farms are going to be huge with regards to this. Do you reckon?
I would actually say it goes farther than that. If you're not doing PI and you're in a mega character, you're leaving money on the table that you really have no rights to be doing. It's passive income. Setting it up takes a little bit of investment and effort. And I'm actually going to be making new videos on how to set up those PI farms and how to get into PI. But it's one of those things that if you're not doing it and you have the ability to just have a couple of planets sitting there making money for you, why wouldn't you?
Well, exactly. I mean, especially with the scarcity that's going on at the minute, if you can get any form of passive income, do it. I think the most painful thing about PI is setting it up. Honestly, it is just setting it up. That is the most painful bit, especially if you have interplanetary consolidation 5 and you're setting up like 6 planets per character. It can get a bit tedious. I've done it myself. I've got like, I think I've made like 12 characters with 6 planets each, and it pays quite well when you start getting it. Once you've set it up and you just adjust it I personally adjust it every 3 days. But people are different. Some people got more time to do it every day. Some people do it over 7 days. The more effort you put into PI, the more you mess with it, the more you get out of it. So I only do 3 days because I don't have time to do all of that. But I think PI
So
farms are going to be huge.
let me throw an example out there for the people who need to understand kind of the scope of PI. I make P4s, so I make wetware mainframes, and I've always made wetware mainframes. It's just something that has always been profitable for me, and they used to be worth a lot of money. I was making about $1 bill a month just from wetware mainframes. That value has gone up
Well, yeah, because they're some of the components used in the new manufacturing, aren't they?
heavily, very very heavily.
So these, I mean, I used to make these cryoprotectant solutions, and what was the other one?
Yeah, cryoprotection solutions are one of the components of a wetware mainframe. And if you were making good money on that before, expect that to grow.
Yeah, so I used to be making those other solutions, those cryo solutions, and synthetic synapses, because I used to build Nirvana implants, and that was a good
Hmm.
profit. That was a very good profit. You could even buy the blueprint copy, make the materials, and make quite a bit of money. But PI farms, just for this update, I think are going to go through the roof. And
In
there's
fact, yeah, that's a great recommendation. I think I might actually base my video on synthetic synapses because those are also used to make command bursts. So there are a requirement in
yeah,
those as well.
yeah. So so those items there. I mean, we'll look at some of these reactions now. We'll come away from these blueprints, and we'll go into some of these reactions, because some of them are a little bit cheeky when it comes to some of the required materials, especially this meta operant Neuralink enhancer. It makes so what you need for that. So what you need to make 20 of these operant Neuralink enhancers is these items, which come from all the different types of low sec gas, which is now segues nicely into our next topic, which is the low sec gas that you are going to need for these components. Now, there's going to be a hell of a lot of ninja harvesting, which is like a venture or a prospect, and you go in, you harvest it, and you get out before even anyone even sees you or finds you, and you can make a lot of money doing that. You used to be able to make a lot of money doing that, but you're going to be able to make a lot more now. So that's going to increase, I'd say probably tenfolds now, because all these different materials that you need to make this, the metamolecular container, oh no, that's the combiner. Okay, so what that looks like, this is one of the items that drops, this metamolecular combiner. That looks like there's no industry required to do it. It's just required for an item, which is these, which is then required for the Neuralink protection cell and the enhanced Neuralink protection cell. So I'm guessing those are for capital components. Oh no, they're not. Neuralink protection cell. Yeah. What is that for? Capital construction components. There you go. So as you can see there, there's from just the Neuralink protection cell, which is a capital construction component, you need a lot of PI, but you also need, if you're going to be doing this yourself as in a corporation, you're going to need a lot of people running out and grabbing all these different materials all over space. There's no longer will industry be able to be settled and into one area and produce everything like it used to be. This is aimed at spreading people out, which they've tried to do over the years. But I think this is kind of going to accomplish that now. And as all these different gases here, like the azure cytoceracin, vermilion cytocerin, they're two different regional gas. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things pop up with this. And as you can see up here, these isotropic neurofullerene, that's wormhole gas right there. So what do you think about the update to combine low sec, wormhole, null sec gases?
I think the redistribution of gases is pretty smart on CCP's part, although it does feel a little bit like a forced diaspora in the sense of forcing people to engage in gas harvesting and intensified industry in other areas of space. The inclusion of fullerene gases, which are wormhole gases, in capital production is also smart. It essentially acts like a giant handbrake on the whole capital proliferation because there's not a lot of fullerene gas when you consider the amount required to build a Titan or some dreadnoughts, and it's highly competed for now. And because the distribution of those gases and how they spawn isn't really known. Like when you mine out or you harvest out a gas cloud in a C5 or a shattered or a C6 system, the players have a really poor understanding of where that cloud will spawn next or how it will move to another location. And so, not only are these highly rarefied gases that are hard to locate and hard to, manage, you might go 5, 6, 7 holes before you find one that's got enough gas clouds for what you're looking for. And that's if somebody else hasn't grabbed it first. And now, on top of that, there's so much increased demand for it that it's the new gold rush.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you on that. I think this is possibly going to be. I did a video a long time ago about about a gold rush when it came to the mining changes, because they were reducing just how much Macoxit was going to be in available in space, but also these the Triglavian ores had Macoxit in, and that was in high sec. So I basically highlighted those, and I thought that was going to be a hell of a gold rush, and the amount of Macoxit that shifted and Morphite that shifted was absolutely immense. Um, One thing I'm liking about this is, I mean, I've played in high sec, I've played in low sec, I've played in null sec, I've played in wormholes, and I'm not gonna lie to you, personally, wormholes are the most isolated group out there, purely because there's no direct access to them. You can't filament into them. You have to scan anomalies and find your way through a spider web of connected wormholes, which now this is going to force everyone in Eve to want to come into wormholes. So there may be big groups or small corporations trying to carve their way in a wormhole space, which again will create some form of conflict. But it's also going to be quite an entrepreneurial period for these big groups that aren't used to having to do this much for industry. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things going on, especially with these wormhole renter groups that rent out wormholes, like Hard Knocks and Laserhawks, that rent out wormholes to people. I don't think they're going to be able to defend them from the volume of people coming through. And as you said, with the fullerene gas being scarce as it is, it's going to be even more so because people will be coming in and ninja harvesting it.
Yeah, I
So
disagree. At the higher level too, you're going to find that there's going to be considerable pressure to um, hold at least some tentative space in wormhole space so that you can have a structure to call safe when you're going out and harvesting. And groups like Laserhawks and Hard Knocks have demonstrated their desire to have a monopoly in wormhole space in the sense that they're constantly pushing people out and evicting people. So I think that that's going to create a definite demand um, artificially, and I think you're going to see a lot of pressure on groups to start maybe fighting back against these larger wormhole groups.
yeah, 100%. And I solidly believe, and I've lived in a wormhole. Back in the day when there was like nearly a million subsystems for all the T3 cruisers, that's when I lived in a wormhole. And by myself, I used to run all the sites in a Varga. I'd used to collapse all the holes and make it basically inaccessible for a couple hours. I used to run all the sites, and then I'd leave my pause just ticking over, doing all the reactions, and make absolute bank. So I think, plus with the value of blue loot and whatnot, and I think wormholes have had it pretty good over the last 10 years. To be quite honest, I think they've had it pretty good. So I think it's going to be nice to see that people are going to be poking around wormholes, and some people might get upset that all their sites are either ran or they can't find any gas. And I think this could coincidentally have a impact on some big alliance doctrine fleets like jackdaws, for example. Prime example, jackdaws come from wormholes, all the wormhole gases. I think this is going to could possibly have a consequence on the prices of those, or the availability more so. What do you reckon?
I don't think you're wrong. I think that everybody's in for a bit of a cold bath.
Yeah, it's going to be it is 100% going to be a shock to the system when it goes live, and a lot of people are going to be upset about it. Some people won't care. They will just instantly adapt, as people do, because you need money in the game. It's that simple. You need ISK to do whatever you need to do. So one way or another, people are going to adapt to all this, and I think the landscape of the game is going to change just down to this industry change, which is a good thing, really. The game, they did say they wanted to create like a big shake-up, a mix around of everything, so I think they're doing a good job of doing that, and upsetting a lot of people along the way, but you know, that kind of happens. You can't please everyone, no matter what you do. So anything to add just before? Oh, sorry. This, I'm just looking through some of these reactions, and this CV composite molecular condenser, I think that's an item that drops as well, is it?
I couldn't say for sure, but I do know that reactions is one of those skill sets that a lot of industrialists are going to have to learn, and it represents not an insignificant amount of skills to pick up. It's, once you've learned all the reaction skills and you have added in PI and all the extra skills you're going to have to learn, it's honestly between 11 and 20 million S worth of skill points.
Yeah. I mean, from just very basic, just so you're out there, you cannot do. Go on,
I
sorry.
misspoke. 11 and 20 million skill points. I said S worth. No.
Ah, right, okay. Got there. You go. So with regards to reactions, it doesn't look like you can train it past level 1 on an alpha account. So that means that it will reduce reduction in time per skill level, but mass reactions, as in doing more than one, is omega locked. So you're only going to be able to, as an alpha character, you can still do this. You're not completely locked out of this, but you can only do one reaction at a time. But it's worth noting that you're going to need to go into low sec, and 2, you're going to need access to a citadel in low sec. So I think a lot of people are going to set up these Athanors, or even bigger groups like Snuff, for example, setting up to public Tataras to capitalize on this newfound requirement for people needing reactions. So it's going to be interesting to see how many new Athanors or Tataras go up in low sec with regards to this, just to get that extra bit of income from people using them, which is quite interesting, actually. I do like that. But reactions are going to be needed. They are not complicated. It's a case of get material 1, material 2, bang it together, you get an end product. So when it comes to R4 moons, or otherwise known as the high sec moons, now when it comes to high sec moon materials, you can actually get let's have a look at these raw materials. So in high sec you can get access to I think, is it 4 or 5?
But keeping in mind, pyrite is also a side product of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which aligns with the fact that all of the ships across New Eden are going to need more pyrite now because all the blueprints have been changed.
Yeah, that's also something worth noting. So when you're in high sec and you see these Athanor citadels on moons, this is the material that you get from it, and this is why people have them up now. And these probably will start popping up more and more over the next coming weeks to try and find those good moons that I've got access to. Well, I have on an alt corp 100% zeolites moon, which is kind of very handy because it gives excuse me, it gives a decent amount of pyrite and atmospheric gases, so I don't have to worry about those. But as Joyous just said there, the consequence of changing these blueprints to reactions requiring reaction materials and needing these high sec moons, they have upped the requirements of, I think they've increased Mexilon slightly and increased pyrite, which is a byproduct of getting these materials to start with. So it's kind of those walk hand in hand, so to speak. So that was a good change that they did there, because as I said, if you've getting that much pyrite and you don't need that much of it, it's kind of a bit of a waste, really. But so I'd 100% go out there and speak to people that have got moons, or maybe if you can defend a moon yourself, because people will come and knock these down. If you can defend one yourself, set one up and make it public and advertise it. And there's all sorts of ways to make money off other people, like refining there, or asking to deposit 10%, whatever you mind, so on and so forth. So, but it's good that these materials already had quite a high usage, but not as high as they are going to be now. So as you can see, we've got carbon fiber reaction, oxy-organic solvents, which are omega locked, unfortunately, for the oxy-organic solvents, but carbon fiber is not. But you can see some of the old original reactions that were on there as well. So that they did have some use, but they are going to be incredibly... well, the usage on them is going to go up incredibly, sorry. Have you got any moons yourself?
I personally don't, but my corporation does, and we use them.
So I think it is worth trying to find someone or a group or whatever that has access to these moons and just give them a poke and say, look, can I use them? So these things are going to, I don't know if they'll change in price because they're already pretty cheap as it is, but I think the usage of them is going to go through the roof, which is always a good thing to use more materials. So I think just so we don't make this video forever, one last topic to go over was this this website called Eve Cookbook. I will leave a link for it in the description. This goes over, adds in some of the required materials that are already going to be needed for the new blueprints. You just have to make sure that you have you can put it on Tranquility, which is the current settings, or change it to Dev, and that will be the new requirements. For it'll put the new blueprints, the new materials required. Now, we did discuss this last time, but the audio failed last time. But these prices are not 100% accurate. They give a good guideline, but they're not 100% accurate because there's an issue with the job costs, isn't there?
Indeed, there is.
So if we go to Tranquility and we put a Nesta blueprint, which you can get from the loyalty point store. So we're going to put the standard person may not have access to an Asbel or Satoyo with rigs. So we'll just put an Asbel, unrigged Asbel, facility tax, say 5%. That seems pretty fair and standard. Reaction structure, Athanor with no rigs, because a lot of people are just going to have a very cheap rig setup just to try and reduce the amount of problems that's going to happen with people hitting it in low sec, because the Athanor is going to have to be in low sec, which you don't need a war to actually hit. So if we just go on calculating the recipe for currently, this is for current prices, is 444 million ISK, and that is just your standard materials that are required to get your Nesta. Now, if we change that to the Dev one, which will add all the new gases, the components and everything in, you'll notice that price will go quite a lot higher. So we're currently at 2.1 billion. Now, I know that is a hell of a lot because the job cost is 440 million, which, again, that specific part is not 100% correct. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But the material cost for all the base materials is still 1.7 billion. Do you reckon that'll change much?
I think the prices are definitely going to continue to climb, at least in the short term, until everybody gets their processes and their chains in place and feeding the market in volume and more people start to do it.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing right now is kind of an impact is that CCP hasn't really turned all the correct dials to steal a line from Kenneth Feld to adjust things. We're seeing job costs that are way outside of what they should be. Like, we're seeing jobs that should be costing several 100,000 ISK costing between 5 and 10 million per job. And obviously, there's something wrong there with the math, because even if you factor in taxes and everything else being charged on a structure when you're doing these kinds of activities, we shouldn't be seeing job costs that high.
No. Well, that's something. I mean, one of the main reasons they were changing this this update. We probably should have opened with this sentence. Really, this change, one of the biggest reasons for this change is that they can fine tune and adjust the requirements for each blueprint per ship, and it will not affect the rest of the game. So, for example, a while ago they reduced the amount of titanium to try and tackle capital proliferation. They reduced the amount of titanium available, but that also increased the price of every other ship in the game. So with this change, they can fine tune how much each blueprint or the material cost it requires to make that item, which doesn't directly affect every other ship in the game. Maybe a category of ship, like a battleship or a faction battleship or a carrier, but it doesn't have a knock-on effect and make, for example, I don't know, if you want to change something on a Titan, it's not going to make battleships go up by 800 mil or whatever, just for argument's sake. But that is the mate. So it's more of a modular way of looking at these components and the prices and the requirements that they can change. They're making it more modular so they can add some on or reduce it depending on what the prices do. So if stuff gets ridiculously expensive to make, like for example, a rear. Let's have a look at a rear. Actually, that's a pretty big meme right now. I think the rears are pretty big memes at the minute. So if we look at making a rear and you are going to do all the stuff, build all the components yourself. Again, we're going to take out the we're not going to have a look at the job cost in itself, but we're going to look at the material requirements for the rear, which is the Caldari jump freighter. So this is something that they may tweak because it is insane. It is absolutely insane. So the job cost is 14 billion. That's broken. That there's no chance in hell that will sit. But material cost alone is 13.5 billion. So
Indeed,
the material cost alone is already higher than what the cost of the whole thing is at the minute. And that's not. Yeah, that's obviously the job cost will come down once they've tweaked it finally. But I suspect it'll still be in the 18 to 19 billion area to build a jump freighter, which will put the prices to 22 plus if someone, or 20 plus billion just for a jump freighter. So this is why they want to change these things and make it more modular, because sorry, go on.
For those who are unfamiliar with me or haven't watched my YouTube videos, I also write for INN, and in the last couple of weeks, I've written a couple of articles reviewing the changes and reviewing the depth of these changes and how the scope of these is going to impact the markets, the game, and people's experiences. And I can tell you pretty much unequivocally that this is not the end of these changes. This is not where things, stop. It's going to get more expensive. And I was hoping, I mean, very, very much in the hope, desire, and opinion that my article should not age well. Unfortunately, it seems that I'm right on track. We're going to see jump freighters approach 20 billion. We're going to see Rorquals basically be priced out of the market. We're going to see ships like small faction vessels increase in price 17 to 20 times. Like it's just obscene. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's but as I said, this is something that they are looking at changing modularly. So they'll add in per ship or per category. They can make changes. So the initial cost is going to be a hell of a lot for everything. But as time progresses, maybe 6 months to 8 months down the line, they may start changing things and start making things a little bit cheaper and put some things a bit more expensive. But just bringing up like the current build of a Titan, an Avatar, just the job cost, which is broken, is 253 billion. That is like 4-5 times more than what you would pay for one fitted nowadays. But the material cost is 323 billion, which, if that was going to be anywhere near correct, you're probably looking at 400 billion plus for a Titan. That's mega. That is like a ridiculous price. But they want to try and stamp down on the fact that everyone has Titans, everyone has supers, and they just helicopter around the universe with them. They want to try and reduce that. So every Titan after this patch that dies will be much harder to replace. But that's the idea of it.
Well, we're gonna see Titans approach 200 billion esque to build.
Yeah, so it's going to be absolutely insane. But as it progresses, there'll be more fine tuning by CCP. They have said they were going to do this. I'm not just assuming this. They have said that they will fine tune material requirements and prices as things go to make it a bit more copeable, I want to say, but that's currently the way that they're going to go. Now, some of these prices, as I said, are absolutely insane, but try not to panic too much about it because they are monitoring it. They are going to be keeping an eye on it. and they are going to make changes as of when. Now, those articles, I will put those in the description below. So if you want to have a go and read of those articles, make sure you head over and have a good read through. And you can even, if you really want to, you can hop into the INN Discord, which again will be another link in the description if you want to come and chat about these changes to see what you think and put your thoughts across. And maybe you can speak to Jurius, or you can speak to Reaver, who's done a lot of number crunching, and get a better idea. But this video is designed and made to give you a first look at the changes and what it could potentially mean. We'll look at doing another video on the possible sort of consequences of, or not consequences, niche markets people or corporations in HiSec can get into, and where you can maximize profits, or what you can do to set up your own production line if you're just starting out, and ways we can look at doing stuff like that. So well, I'll arrange with Jurius to get that video out, and once this one goes live, we'll probably do it like on a weekend. But I'm hoping you enjoyed this one, guys. I really do. This is, again, a first look at the industry changes. There's more to come. And once this goes live, you can sure as hell bet that we'll be doing another video going over the changes once it's had the first week or two to the market to settle, to stabilize with prices, because they're going to be mental first. But with everything, it's a shock to the system, then it stabilizes. So, Juris, you'll be all right for doing that?
I will. I look forward to it.
Perfect. So, any final thoughts from yourself before we sign off until the next one?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm going to continue to be doing more writing on these topics, and you can expect to see more from me on INN and on YouTube.
Brilliant. Right, as I said, guys, I'll put up a link to those articles in the description below. I'll also put a link to Juris Doctor's YouTube channel, so you can go and check out some of his older videos that he's done, some of this new upcoming PI videos that are going to be coming up, and some further videos that he's going to be doing. But I hope you enjoyed, guys. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.